Old Murder Mittens is vibrating. What's up, Chuckers? Welcome to another video. If it's your first time on the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all the latest and greatest DIY projects around the house for when fit hits the shan around your house that they can take care of it temporarily while you're away. So how many times have you had to wake up in the middle of the night and shut the water off to your house? It's happened to some of us at least once, not a few times. There's always the one person in the house that knows how to take care of that, but usually it's just the one person. The other person has no idea. They just rely on the other person to be able to take care of it. So a few years back, I had a widow neighbor lady ask me how to shut the water off to her house, and I had never really, I had just assumed that she knew how to do it, but her husband always took care of that stuff, and when he passed away, she was left trying to figure that stuff out. So I figured I'd make a little video on it, on a few of the essential things that you need to know and teach the other person how to operate in the house. Okay, number one is water main. Always know where the water main shutoff is. That'll be your first line of defense when something breaks, a fixture or a pipe in the house breaks. You can run to the main water shutoff and just shut off all of the water. Now, there are little valves. You've seen all those little stainless steel valves on all of the fixtures. So like if you're changing out a faucet, you can just shut the valve off right there. Or on a toilet, there's that little valve. That's a good way for when you're doing maintenance. You can rather than shutting the whole house off, you can just turn off that fixture so you can work on it or replace the parts. Now if you have a PEX manifold, a newer style PEX plastic tubing inside of your house, on that manifold there is a valve for every fixture. So rather than having it be right by the fixture, usually your valves are all in one spot. There's a cold side and a hot side, and they should be labeled, which will help you out a bunch. You either have the valve at the fixture or the valve at the manifold. So just know where those are at, that if something happens, you can shut off just that certain fixture so you don't have to shut the water off to the entire house. Now there is a supply valve to your water heater. That one's not too big of a deal because you can just shut the main water off, which is usually right before your water heater. Usually you're doing that when you're maintaining stuff, if you're gonna replace something on your water heater or flush it out. Now the last one for the water is the sprinkler system. I'll bet you only one person knows how to turn on or off the sprinkler system. This one is crucial because it's not so noticeable, so you can lose a lot of water due to a sprinkler system mainline break or a pipe break. So typically with the sprinkler system, there are three types of turn-on valves. You have the one in the house. Right after the one in the house, there should be a drain next to it, so be careful. Make sure the drain's closed when you're turning the water supply onto your sprinkler system. Number two would be, there's about a 2-inch pipe down in the ground that you stick a big key down in. That one's a 1/4 turn ball valve, big heavy duty valve. Make sure with that one, if you have that style, to get it either fully on or fully off because there's a little bleeder hole on the side of it. And if it's partially open or closed, it'll spray water out of there. And I've heard of cases where people don't notice it and they end up with a marsh in their yard. So fully on or fully off. Number three would be about a 10-inch pipe down in the ground. Usually that has a green 10-inch round valve box cover lid over it. That one has two valves down inside of there, and it's the cross top type valve. So again, you have a key for that one. One of them is a drain, one of them is a turn on and off valve. So again, make sure the drain is closed if you're turning the water supply on. Okay, after water, number one. Number two will be power. Make sure to tell them where the main circuit breaker for the entire house shutoff is. Generally, it's at the top of the breaker panel, just a big switch, kills all the power in the house. Now after that, of course, you have all the little breakers that go to each appliance. Should have those labeled. It's a good idea to have them labeled. It'll make your life a whole lot less hectic if they are labeled properly. And the third and final is gas. Now every appliance in the house that has a gas supply to it should by code have a little ball valve for a shutoff on it. So you can explain to them where that and how that works. Gas you usually don't have to touch unless you can smell the gas, the odor. it is a good idea to show them where the gas valves are. And if you have to, in an absolute emergency, on the main gas meter, there is a valve there as well. So that one's a little tougher because you have to put a wrench on it to shut that one off, but it also is a good idea to know where the main gas shutoff is. So that's it, pretty simple. Water, power, and gas. Just make sure they know where the turn on and turn off valves are for all of these things. So if you've made it this far, I'll give you a little bonus material. Did you know that on water valves in your house, you're supposed to cycle them once a year at least? Turn them on and turn them off to get rid of the hard water buildup that's on them. So I found that when I go to replace a fixture and I turn that little valve off, I have the older style where the valve is right by the fixture. Every time I go to turn that valve off, it always locks up on me and I have to shut the main water off to the house. Now if I cycle those valves once a year, it'll get rid of the hard water and I'll be able to turn them on and off without having to replace the valve, because every single time I go to do a fixture and I shut that valve off, they never shut off all the way. So while I'm at the plumbing store, I end up replacing the valve. I've probably done that half a dozen times. So on all your main shutoffs, cycle the valves at least once a year. Another little bonus tip for you, those little stainless steel water lines that go from the wall to the fixture, so from the wall to the toilet or the wall to the sink, keep an eye on those, because we had some that were corroded, and one night at 2 in the morning one of those actually exploded, and trying to wake up, figure out what was going on, have to run downstairs and shut the water off while you're still half asleep. It's not so fun. We had water that went from upstairs through the ceiling into a ceiling fan and down on the floor below. Left quite a mess by the time I was able to make it downstairs and shut the water off. So when you're around those little valves and those stainless steel water lines, just do a quick little visual inspection on them and make sure they're not corroded to the point where they're gonna explode on you in the middle of the night, because that's not a fun thing to go through. All right, chuckers, that's it. The 3 different categories you need to teach the co-inhabitor, spouse or partner, unless you live by yourself, on how to properly turn on and turn off devices, main lines, supplies, whatever it may be, so that both of you know and not just one of you. So when you run into an emergency, you can have them take care of it if you're not there. It's always good for 2 people to know. Thanks for watching. See you next time, chuckers.